What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the interest for the 2024 Wurth 400 at Dover International Speedway. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's coming off having an okay run at Talladega Super Speedway. Luckily for him, he's been historically really good the last couple times he's been at Dover Motor Speedway. I believe scoring top 5 finishes in the last 2 straight races here at Dover. I expect Ross Chastain to be pretty quick here. I think he's going to have a really good chance and opportunity to get his first win of the year. As he's still looking for his first win of the year, I think Ross Chastain's going to have a good chance and opportunity to get win number 1 of 2024. Up next, up at the 2 car for Team Pensky. This one's going to be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric had a pretty good run last week at Talladega, but outside of that, it's been a little bit of a mediocre start to 2024. And I'm not sure how he's going to do, considering I don't think that Austin Cindric in the Cup Series has been great here. I know he's won in the Xfinity Series in the past at this track, but in the Cup Series, he has not ran great here. I don't expect him to set the world on fire, and I think he's probably going to struggle this weekend at Dover International Raceway. Up next, up with the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing. This one's going to be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's coming off of having an okay run, but he didn't get the finish I think he deserved last week at Talladega. But Austin Dillon's kind of struggled for the most part so far in 2024, and he's looking for some redemption. Historically, Austin Dillon has not been great at this racetrack, and I really don't think he's going to have a fantastic run. I think he'll most likely struggle in the 3 car this weekend at Dover International Raceway. Up next, up with the 4 car for Suarez Racing. This one's going to be driven by Josh Berry. Now, Josh Berry, I believe, has won here in the NASCAR Xfinity Series a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And he did okay in the Cup Series race the second time he ran here when he drove the 48 car. But I don't know how he's going to do because SHR's has some good speed at Dover in the past, but I'm not sure if Josh Berry is going to run really well. That being said, I hope that he can have a really solid run and he'll be looking to get his first career Cup Series win this weekend at Dover International Raceway. Up next, up with the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's coming into race number 11 in the year as the points leader. He has scored 110 stage points so far this year, and historically, Kyle Larson has been pretty good at Dover as he won here back in 2019. He's led a lot of laps, and I think he's one of the favorites going into the weekend. I do think that Kyle Larson has a good chance to not only continue being the points leader after this weekend, but I think he's got a good chance and opportunity to get a second win of 2024 this weekend at Dover. Up next, up with the 6 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski currently has a lot of momentum. He's had 2 consecutive runner-up finishes in a row, the first time it's happened since Carl Edwards back in 2011 when he did that at Phoenix and Homestead. I don't think Keselowski is going to continue this extremely positive momentum. I think he's got a good chance and opportunity to maybe get a top 10, but I don't think he's a threat or a favorite. I think he'll have a solid run, but I don't expect him to be a contender for the win this weekend at Dover National Raceway. Up next, up with the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Cory Joy. After a really strong start to 2024, Cory Joy has been struggling a little bit. I don't think he's going to run great. Spire historically has not been fantastic here at Dover National Raceway. I think he's going to have a mediocre run. I don't expect him to run great. I don't think he's going to do terrible, but I'm not expecting Cory Joy to set the world on fire this weekend at Dover. Up next, up with the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing. This one's going to be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has had an up and down start to 2024, and Kyle Busch historically has been pretty good at Dover. But to be fair, RCR has not been great here recently, so I'm not sure how Kyle Busch is going to do. I think if he can stay out of trouble and stay out of getting involved in wrecks and issues, I think he might have a chance and opportunity to run up front. We'll see how he ends up doing. We'll see if Kyle Busch can have a good run this weekend at Dover. Up next, up with the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott has historically been very good here. He has scored 2 Cup Series wins at this racetrack up to this point, with his last one coming here, I believe, back in 2022. Chase Elliott's had a lot of speed and momentum as of recently, and Hendrick Motorsports historically has been great at Dover. I think Chase Elliott has a really great chance and opportunity to get a second win of 2024 this weekend with Hendrick Motorsports in the 9 organization. Up next, up with the 10 car for Suarez Racing. This one's going to be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson's been off to a very solid start in 2024 as he scored his first top 5 finish of the season last week at Talladega. I think that Noah Gragson has a decent chance and opportunity. He's been good here in the Xfinity Series in the past, and SHR's has some good speed here in the past as well. So I do think that Noah Gragson has a solid chance and potentially a good opportunity to have a strong run this weekend with SHR at Dover. Up next up at the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin has had a lot of speed so far in 2024, but also has been a little inconsistent. While he has 2 victories, he also had a lot of finishes outside the top 30. I do think that Denny Hamlin will be one of the front runners. He's been great at Dover in the past, has a couple of wins at this racetrack, and has led a ton of laps as well. I think Denny Hamlin has a great chance and opportunity. I do believe he could be a threat to win his 3rd race of 2024 this weekend at Dover. Up next out with the 12th car for Team Pensky. This one's going to be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's been probably the strongest Ford so far in 2024, and Wurth, of course, has been a former sponsor of Ryan Blaney's in the past. I do think that Ryan Blaney will be okay. He hasn't been great at this track historically. I think he might have a decent run. I know he's won in Xfinity in the past. I don't think he's going to be a threat to win, but I think he's got a chance and opportunity maybe to get a top 10 this weekend at Dover. Up next up with the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chase Brisco. Chase Brisco, I believe, has won here in the Xfinity Series in the past, but in the Cup Series, it's been a much different story. He hasn't ran up front consistently at this track, though. He has been the best SHR driver consistently so far throughout 2024. I don't think he's going to be a threat to win the race this weekend because Ford's been struggling a bit, but I do think he's got a good chance and opportunity to maybe get a top 10 this weekend at Dover. Up next up with the 15 car for Reich Racing. This one's going to be driven by Kaz Grala, who's back in the car after missing last week when Cody Ware made his return. Kaz Grala has had a decent start to the year so far in 2024, but has not been amazing. I think he's got a 27th place average finish. And I do think more than likely Kaz Grala is going to finish near the bottom of the field. That being said, it's good to see Kaz Grala back in the car, and we'll see how he can do this weekend at Dover. Up next, up with the 16 car for Cory Racing. This one once again be driven by AJ Allmendinger, will make his 4th Cup start of 2024. AJ Allmendinger's had a decent start to the Xfinity Series season so far, and he's been in the Cup Series except on the road courses. Cole's been struggling a bit though this year. We don't know what's going to be happening to the team going forward in the future, but AJ Allmendinger is looking to have a good run. We'll see if he can have a solid and good run this weekend at Dover. Up next, up the 17 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher, I believe, has won here previously in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and to his credit, he's had some pretty good pace and speed at times at Dover the last couple of years. I do think that Chris Buescher has a chance and opportunity to get at least a top 10 and maybe even a top 5 if the Fords show the pace and speed. We'll see what Chris Buescher can do as he's still looking for his first win of 2024 this weekend at Dover. Up next, talk about the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. comes in this race as one of the favorites, as he's won here, I think, 3 or 4 times, which I think is the most winningest track that he has had in his Cup Series career at this point. I think MTJ's got a really good chance and opportunity. He's still looking for his first win of the year. Like I said, though, I think Martin Truex Jr. is going to have a good chance and opportunity to get his first win of 2024 at Dover. Up next, top of the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's had a very roller coaster run in 2024. While he does have a win, he still sits 13th or 14th in the points. Has had 3 finishes outside the top 30 in a row. I think Christopher Bell can turn the corner, though, this weekend, considering JGR has shown some great pace and speed at this racetrack in the past. He'll be looking to have a bounce-back performance, and I think he's got a good chance and opportunity to do that this weekend at Dover. Up next, top of the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. This one's going to be driven by Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton finally scored his first top 10 of 2024. Outside of that, it has been a struggle for him in 2024. He needs to turn the corner quickly, and maybe he can get the momentum he needs this weekend in Dover, but like I said, I expect him to probably go back to where he's been running most of the year, which will most likely be in the back half of the field this weekend at Dover. Up next, top of the 22 car for Team Pensky. This one once going to be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano had been turning the corner, but he still is currently outside of the playoffs. Luckily for him last week, he was able to get his first stage win of 2024. He's looking to continue to have some really strong runs this weekend at Dover. He's looking to get back in the playoffs at this point. While, like I said, the Fords have struggled, Logano's had some speed at times. We'll see if Joey Logano can have a solid and good run this weekend at Dover International Raceway. Up next, top of the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This one's going to be driven by Bubba Wallace. After having a couple of really strong runs, unfortunately last week at Talladega, he did not get the finish I think he deserves. Bubba Wallace has been alright at Dover in the past, but he's not been absolutely spectacular. I do think that Bubba Wallace could have a solid and good run this weekend. I think that 2311 Racing is coming off and winning last week with Tyler Reddick. We'll see if Bubba Wallace can have a solid and good run this weekend at Dover in the 23. Up next, how about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This one once going to be driven by William Byron. William Byron is still the winningest driver so far in 2024 with 3 victories. And William Byron has had some good runs at this track, but has also had some not so good runs at Dover. But like I mentioned with Hendrick, they've been really strong. They've probably been the strongest organization so far in 2024. It would not surprise or shock me if William Byron is able to get win number 4 of 2024 this weekend at Dover. Up next, how about the 31 car for Cory Racing? This one once going to be driven by Daniel Hamrick. Daniel Hamrick had a very good run last week at Talladega, scoring his first top 10 of 2024. Daniel Hamrick, though, I expect to kind of fall back a little bit in the field. The Call cars have not been extremely fast so far. I know SVG's had some pace in that car so far this year, but I do think that Daniel Hamrick might get a top 20, but that's probably about it at this point, but at least Hamrick will be in the car this weekend at Dover. Up next, how about the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports? This one once going to be driven by Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell was probably the dominant car last week at Talladega, but unfortunately crashed himself trying to block Brad Keselowski going for the win. Michael McDowell's also been very inconsistent so far in the 2024 season. I don't think that Michael McDowell is going to be a threat for the win. I think he's got a chance for a top 15 or maybe a top 10, but I don't think he's going to be a threat for the win. We'll see how he can do in the number 34 car this weekend at Dover. Up next, how about the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports? This one once going to be driven by Todd Gillan. Todd Gillan's coming off of getting his first top 10 of the 2024 season, and I feel like the Todd Gillan has been a lot more competitive so far this year. I don't think that Todd Gillan's going to be a threat for the win, but I think he's got a chance and an opportunity to maybe get a top 15 this weekend in the number 38 car, because he has not been great historically at this track. We'll see how he can do this weekend in the 38 car at Dover International Raceway. Up next, how about the 41 car for Suarez Racing? This one once going to be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece has been solid at this track in the past. In fact, I think he got a top 20 with Reich Racing Equipment a few years ago, and he's been okay at this track in the past as well. I think that Ryan Preece has a good chance and opportunity, maybe contend for a top 15. I don't think he's going to be running up front for the victory because SHR has been inconsistent, but we've seen SHR have pace and speed. We'll see how Ryan Preece can do with SHR this weekend at Dover. Up next, how about the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club? This one once going to be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek has been very inconsistent so far, but he had a really good start to the year where he was inside the top 20. But the last 2 weeks, John Hunter Nemechek has been involved in some incidents and been involved in some wrecks. I do think that John Hunter Nemechek could have a top 15 or 20 run. I think the Toyotas are going to be solid this week, and I think he's got a chance for a top 10 as well. We'll see what John Hunter Nemechek can do, and we'll see if he can have a good run this weekend with Legacy Motor Club. Up next, how about the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club? Now, currently at the moment, Erik Jones is listed as a driver, but it's still unknown at this point if he is going to be racing this weekend. If Erik Jones does not drive this car, Corey Heim will make his Cup Series debut because Corey Heim is a reserve driver for Legacy Motor Club. I hope that we can see Erik Jones behind the wheel, but more than likely at this time, unless we get more updates, confirmation, I do think that Corey Heim likely will be in the 43, but Erik Jones is currently listed as the driver of the 43. Up next, how about the 45 car for 2311 Racing? This one once going to be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick is coming off of picking up the victory last weekend at Talladega Superspeedway, and I feel like the Tyler Reddick has been showing a lot more pace and speed in the 2024 season. I think he's an outside championship threat and contender. I'm not sure how he's going to do this weekend. I think he'll have a good performance. We'll see how he can do this weekend as he looks to go back-to-back this weekend at Talladega, at Dover, I should say. Up next, how about the 47 car for JTG Doherty? This one once going to be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is coming off having his first top 5 finish of the 2024 season, and I do think that Stenhouse has been great here. In fact, 2 years ago at this track, he played a strategy and got a top 5. I do think that Stenhouse could be okay. I think he's going to be finishing more than likely in the back half of the field, but he did get a top 5 finish recently. There's a lot of rumors about JTG Doherty's future we'll talk about later this week. We'll see what he can do this weekend at Dover. Up next, how about the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This one once going to be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman is really good at Dover historically. He won here back in 2021 and nearly won this race 2 years ago as well. I do think that Alex Bowman is going to be a threat for the win in the victory. I think the 48 team's been a lot more consistent. He's coming off and having a top 5 last weekend at Talladega. I think that Alex Bowman will have a very solid and good run this weekend at Dover. Up next, up at the 51 car for RFK Racing. This one once again be driven by Justin Haley. After having some good performances, he's also been a little inconsistent. Now, RFK Racing did get a top 20 finisher with Ryan Preece. Outside of that, though, there really hasn't been great runs for this team. But I do think that if anyone can really turn the corner for this team, it is Justin Haley. He's been the best driver ever that RFK Racing has had up to this point. I think he could have a good run. We'll see what Justin Haley can do this weekend at Dover. Up next, up at the 54 car for Gibbs Racing. This one once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. After starting the year off really strong, the last 4 races he has finished outside the top 10. But I think Ty Gibbs is going to be a threat for the win. I think Toyotas have been showing some great pace and speed, and I do think that Ty Gibbs could have a really great run this weekend. He's still looking for his first career Cup win. I think he's going to have a really solid chance and a good opportunity to do that this weekend at Dover International Speedway. Up next, up the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith has had a rough go so far in 2024, but he did make his Xfinity debut at this track, and he has won here in the Truck Series before in the past. I do think that Zane Smith could have an okay run, but I expect the Spire cars to struggle at least a little bit. That being said, I could see Zane Smith having a decent run. He's looking for a bounce-back performance. We'll see what he can do this weekend at Dover. Up next, top of 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar has been very surprisingly good so far in 2024 with a lot of top 15, a lot of top 20s, and even a top 10 so far. He ran really well here in the Xfinity Series a few years ago, last year I should say, and I think that Carson Hocevar could have a top 15 or top 20 run. He's been very impressive throughout the season and hasn't really scored a lot of stage points, but the performances have been there. We'll see what Carson Hocevar can do in a 77 car this weekend at Dover. Up next, up at the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Jimmy Johnson, make his 3rd of 9 planned starts in 2024. Jimmy Johnson, the last time he raced, finally scored his first lead lap finish in the next-gen car, even though he spun out. I actually think Jimmy Johnson could have a good run. He's been good at Dover. He's, I think, still to this day, the winningest driver in Dover history. I think that Jimmy Johnson could have his best run he's ever had in the next-gen car. That's not really saying much at this track, but I think that Jimmy Johnson could have a solid run this weekend at Dover. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez has been a little inconsistent throughout the 2024 season. He's had 2 top 5 finishes, but only 2 top 10s throughout the year. He really needs to start turning the corner and needs to be up front a little more if he's going to stay long-term with Trackhouse Racing. Luckily for him, he's had some good runs at Dover in the past. We'll see what Daniel Suarez can do as he's looking to have some back-to-back performances. We'll see what Daniel Suarez can do in the 99 car this weekend at Dover. So, that is the entrance for the 2024 Wurth 400 at Dover. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support my Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's video. Who's your early pick to win the Wurth 400? Let me your thoughts in the comments below. I did a video on Hailie Deegan a couple days ago. I've had a couple SVG videos drop on the channel as of recently. Tomorrow we're going to have a NASCAR news video, and we're also going to have race picks for Cup most likely Wednesday or tomorrow, and we'll probably have Xfinity Series race picks dropping later today as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.